That feels serious, right?
That's like action-packed, live. Here we go.
Wanted to feel like new. PT Breakfast Club. We are doing this live twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8:30. Dave Kittle is there. I'm Jimmy McKay, and Tony Maritato is providing first aid, I believe. He's got an injury off camera, so maybe we'll get him a little bit later. But Dave, how you doing this morning in New York?
Feeling great. How are you?
It feels fall, so I am kind of excited. Tony and I are headed to PPS, which is in National Harbor, DC. Technically, it's Maryland. I'm not really sure how maps work, but it feels like Virginia to me because it's just across the river from DC. Just across the river from Virginia. I'm excited because I've been to PPS 2 or 3 times before, and this time, I don't know, it feels different. I feel like there's a little buzz going on right now of people who are looking forward to not even the speaking sessions. I know we had Jerry on a week or 2 ago about his speaking session. I feel PPS is more about the elbows, man, and rubbing them.
Absolutely, definitely. And is that tomorrow or Thursday?
We are heading down tomorrow because like the day we're going to do a bunch of videos / live streams. We're just going to be like Johnny on the spot. We got cameras and batteries and microphones. Oh my, all ready to go. Is Thursday. And then the big party on PPS is Friday. That's like where the chaos is.
Oh, there's another Keith from Accounted For. I think they're doing some party with Net Health or whatever. So I'm just saying out loud, even though we're doing this live, I'll send you the link and you can, sign up for some extra free parties, unless this is the one you're already going to. I don't know.
Honestly, I mean,
I'm sure there's a bunch.
Somebody accused me of being a type A personality, and I'm like, I am a B- at best. But I feel like that's where the magic is, whether it's CSM or PPS. It's like you go, you hang out, you see someone says there's this big party. You're like, okay. It's a lot like freshman year in college, first weekend. You're just like, I don't know what's good here. And you just sort of roam around until you find your people. Let's talk about firing your people. You want to talk about firing your people first?
Let's do it. Let's get into it.
All right. I think it's this one. Nope, that's not it. We'll talk about that one later. Nope.
Wait, Jimmy does have a lot of screenshots. So if you guys are listening right now, you got to jump over to the YouTube. If for somehow you are listening on audio, jump over to either Learn Medicare Billing on YouTube or PT Pinecast on YouTube or the Dave Kittle Show if this is remixed later.
We'll read it to you like story time. So Evelyn Kepfadia, hope I said that right. She said she needed some guidance. Her front desk started in January 2024, so like 10 months ago, and was a rock star. But in the past 2 months, she's become sloppy and distracted. She's been hard on her. She's met her with her and asked her what's going on and given her the opportunity to come up with a better workflow, allowing her to give me feedback versus me just telling her what to do. However, today I'm frustrated. I just keep seeing careless mistake after mistake. I think she's capable. I don't know what else to do to get her back on track. I'm thinking of asking her to stay home for the next week or 1 to 2 days, maybe the whole week, to see if that scares her straight. But that only gives me more work to do, and I would have to cover her job. Thoughts? Have you ever run into this type of problem?
Well, first of all, I don't know Evelyn that much or well at all, for that matter. Like chatted with her once, I think. From what I see, I think what I see in here, I think she's a super successful, savvy practice owner. So I don't know if we know the full context. It's not like as well as you and I and Tony know each other. There's a couple initial thoughts. I did write some notes down. I think one of the things that I actually overlooked that I think you commented on was in that group, in that post, I think you commented something along the lines of like, have you asked them, have you checked in with the actual employee? Has anything happened in their life, right? Like family, it could be anything, like passing away, divorce, like child illness or something. Like that's something that I think would overlook. And that was one of the things you commented. And I was like, before I even get into the tactical questions that I have next, I'm like, oh, did I need to look into that. So thank you for
Now, I think she did. I met with her and asked her what's going on. That's like the third sentence. I have met with her and asked her what's going on.
Okay, so it was nothing like that.
I know, but you never know if you're going to get that story because that employee might be like, hey, and because Tony did comment on this later. He's not here. I'll speak for what Tony said. He's like, hey, are your personal problems my problem? No, but your employee is your problem. Like she's your job. Your employee is your job. So again, hey, what's going on? Everything okay? I don't know, man. If something major was going on, I don't know if I'd actually tell you like right off the bat because my job is to keep composure. We've all sort of been there, right? So why don't you tell me, because I want to see if you've had employees like this. I know Tony probably has, or situations like that, but he's not here today. So walk me through, like, have you had a situation like this? If so, like, what was your thought process, and then how'd it go? Would you have changed it?
I have changed it. I'm going to read off my checklist of questions now
Got
that
it.
I have more experience and maybe some scar tissue and experience in the trenches, all that. Have gone through it, didn't handle it well, I didn't understand. I'm the business owner, and like, kind of like, hey, are these personal problems you're kind of dragging into work? Maybe is that my problem or not? Obviously, we want to talk about communication, right? So, okay, this is where I think is a good place to start, and you can, cut this apart. You can challenge it as much as you need. So, the practice owner talking to the front desk person, hey, did you know what to do? Like, whatever the task, whatever the things are, like, did you know what to do? Because if not, that's on me, and like, we need to do more training.
Yep.
Did you know how to do it? Did you know how to do the task or multiple tasks or whatever? If not, that's still on me, the practice owner. I need to improve training. Maybe we need to have, like, you access this playbook on our Google Drive or whatever software, whatever. Maybe I need to record more of me doing the test on a Loom or Zoom or whatever, and then share that with you. And then you go through a video library, or we review that together, whatever. Did you want to do it? Like, did you want to do that task, or do you want to do these tasks in general?
Oh,
because if not,
so hold on a second. This is where it shifts over from Dave's responsibility to the employee's responsibility, in my opinion. Like, we've just crossed the Mason-Dixon line.
Exactly. So, like, and if the employee's like, no, like, I want to do it. I like this. I like the admin stuff. I like answering the phones, the insurance verifications, the billing on time, the claims, chasing down, following up on accounts receivable, whatever it is, like that type of stuff. If they want to do it, great. Like, let's keep it rolling. If not, we need to either have some plan in place that, like, can we steer this boat a different direction, or do we need to let you off the bus? So that really depends on the employee. Next question from the practice owner to this potential team member. Did you know that we needed this done at a certain deadline? Like, did you know that this is, like, needs to be done, like, every day or every week, or like, or is it, am I leaving too many things up to, like, assumption? Is it like open-ended?
That's sort of back on you to at least make sure that there's clarity for that, right?
Correct.
Like, I think the only question you asked that's, like, quote, the employee's responsibility is like, do you want to do this? And I'm like, and I come in on, do you understand this is part of the job? And is this something you still want to do? Because if it's not, I need this done. This is the role. This is you're the player playing that position. But everything else is, like, as I agree, in terms of its clarity on the business owners first anyway.
And that's a good point that you just brought up, because every single one of these tasks should be listed and communicated with the employee during the interviewing and hiring component of the interaction. It's not like, this is what happens. Like, some people get hired in physical therapy to, like, answer phones and, like, do some front desk stuff. And then the next thing you know, they're, like, doing the laundry, they're folding up pillowcases, they're wiping tables down. Then they learn some about the billing, and now they're doing billing, credentialing, whatever. And they may or may not have even had any training or anything. Yeah, they're juggling too many things, right? So that's where there's so many variations to this whole dynamic.
I recognize this because this happens a lot in marketing. Marketing is like the junk drawer of, like, businesses sometimes, because you get brought in for marketing and it's like, well, hey, while you're doing it, about websites, and about
social media.
The social media. It's like, hang on a second. We just throw everything in the junk drawer and assume that person's going to be good at everything. So all right. So what else you got? I don't want to cut you off.
And so, so with that, by the way, I think that happens in every business. Like, we just said physical therapy, then you said marketing, and it probably happens in the front office of 100%. The exterminator company that we use, the 100%. HVAC, the plumbing, like, everywhere. So it's 100%. Not just physical therapy. Next thing, so in my list was, has anything happened, like anything going on personally? Like, and I know you can't always ask if they want to talk about it, whatever, but we covered it. Next question is kind of like, are there any other, like, bottlenecks? Or either the primary or secondary question would be like, so, hey, Jimmy, like, with what you're doing right now, do you feel like there's too many tasks? Like, do you have too many tasks that you can't even finish the primary task or the span of whatever it is? it's always a lot, right? For a physical
Right.
therapy admin, whatever the number is, 10 things, 50 things. Like, Jimmy, do you feel like you're swamped and you're always playing catch up and you actually can never catch up? And have you ever like left here and you feel like you're always behind? Because in that case, it's like you might have the right or wrong team member there. If you have the right team member there and they're great and you want to keep them and they're doing everything on time, they know how to do everything, they want to do everything, but they're just swamped and overwhelmed, you might need to hire a second admin person. So it really depends on the answers to these questions. Is
Correct.
if like, do we have the right team member on the bus? Do we need to potentially get this team member off the bus maybe? Or
different seat.
maybe a different seat, or they're in the right seat. We need another person to come on the bus to do some either in person in the clinic or remote admin stuff. And that could be a second admin person, depending on the scale of your practice, if you're growing. And then obviously there's components there.
The only other thing I'll add is maybe it's you.
Oh man, it could be. It absolutely could be.
That it's you, right? There was a great clip, and I think I referenced it before on this live stream, where some guy gets up at a Gary V like speaking event and is like, Gary, I don't know the problem. I've been trying to hire people. I can't find anybody who's as motivated and hardworking as me. And Gary freaking put the e-brake on that guy, and he goes, why would I? Why would anybody work as hard as you in your business? Now they should work hard. I don't think Gary, and I'm definitely not advocating for someone not to work hard. You need to. You should. I like it. Like if I'm not working hard, I'm actually annoyed, right? But have you stopped to look and, like to quote T Swizzle there, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. I don't know that it is Evelyn or anybody in this situation, but the idea is like something changed in 10 months, right? And it wasn't like this was a good employee. She used the word rockstar. Something changed. And I think my first reaction in the first probably 40 years of my life was do a lot of this. Whose fault is this? And your fault, and do a lot of finger wagging. And then I learned from smarter people, right? Which is hang on a second, play it safe, because in a week or a month, you might have to defend what you're saying and be like, hang on a second. What changed? Was it me? Was it processes? Someone else was smart. I think it was Joey in the comments, like, did you grow? Like, did she do a good job? Did your team do a great job? You grew and now she's underwater. Well, I'd be acting differently. Something changed. I think a lot of people in the comments were like, fire that person.
Yeah,
fire them.
That it's so easy for folks on Facebook in that example to be like, oh, fire them. Like, obviously, like, but then if you're paying this team member that you interviewed and maybe you met their family and you know that they either are or recently were a rock star, why would you just revert to like a quick fire? That makes no sense at all.
That's a punt, because like, all right, first of all, if by definition that person is a rock star, that's why I stopped on Evelyn's post. She didn't say this was a great employee or a good employee. She said rock star. And I'm like, by definition, how many rock stars are out there? 0.001%, right? So her words, not mine. You slide the next person in, and let's say they're an all-star, not a rock star. If we're going to go like, the hierarchy of the world, they're really, really great, not a rock star. Whatever situation is there in the business or in that position of the business is still going to be there just because you put a new person in there. So do you want to just punt the problem 3 months down the line? That's going to cost you. That person doesn't have any institutional knowledge. You have to train them up all over again. You're going to start from zero because that person, that all-star you bring in, sort of knows nothing. You're just going to take them 3 or 4 months. So I don't know, man. I mean, I have no problem firing someone if they don't fit. But my issue is if they're actually a rock star, figure out what the problem is. Maybe this person, something happened. Maybe it went sour. Maybe something went sideways. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the business, the position. Maybe it was you. Start there. It's easiest. And we do that thing we're supposed to do in PT school, which is a self-reflection, which we all hated, myself included.
I'm glad that you said it. So when you're saying it could be us, like, I'm like, yeah, it's like holding up a mirror or looking into a mirror and like the practice owner, like, hey, maybe it's actually us. Maybe it's me. And I have 2 quick examples of therapists where it was me. Obviously, I won't say their names, but like, so last year we had a physical therapist start with us and she left after like 3 or 4 weeks. Now, she did say some things like, so Jimmy, you worked for Fox Rehab, like for in general, like those geriatric patients, you could almost stop in any time of the day in the middle of the day. Versus half our clientele are busy and they're working from home with Zoom calls, whatever. So that therapist, one thing that the therapist didn't like is that the therapist said it was hard to schedule the orthopedic busy clients because they were between Zoom calls or whatever. And that made it really challenging for her to schedule and build out a caseload, whatever. Either way, that's my fault because I didn't tell her that. I didn't explain that up front. So then I did better with my next hire. And the next hire, I went through this whole process even more and explained all this stuff and over communicated and did more onboarding calls and all that. And the therapist still, like after the first 60 days, was doing great. I paid the recruiting fee, PT match for Sturdy McKee's recruiting fee, big over $7,000 recruiting fee. And then a couple months later, the therapist went from full-time to part-time, which already kind of violated what we agreed on with the offer letter and all that. And then from part-time to like 1 day a week. And at that point I was like,
what are you doing? It's more work.
1 day a week? No. So we met in person. I fired him because like he was just he wanted me to basically fire him. He didn't want to quit, obviously. Like who goes from full time to 1 day a week?
What was the issue? Like, did you ever figure out he didn't want to be there? He didn't like the population. He didn't like the role.
Multiple other projects. He had like a pseudo practice kind of thing he was trying to do. Other projects I won't even mention, but like other gigs, working for other companies, trying to do some entrepreneurial thing. I think too many lines in the lake. Like just too many things. But I knew a lot of this stuff up front. So in the future, like I need to do a better job of hiring and probably not hiring entrepreneurial therapists unless they want to like buy in and like actually be like a partner or, buy into some territory or something. So, but that goes back. So that was me in the past 2 years or year and a half or whatever, really looking at like anything that happens in my practice, especially like with team members like this. I want to look at myself first because it's like, that might be the issue.
Yeah.
I want to take the blame first. I have the thick skin. I can do that. And then maybe I will go through this checklist of with my team member.
Yeah. I got to be honest, man. When I started doing stuff like this, it made me feel better. Number one. So it's like, okay, I'm being safe about this. Right. Number two, and this is just my perception, I feel like it made other people look at me different. Like you'll say all the time, the person that like doesn't cast judgment, like sort of gets looked at like, oh, that person's really like people assume intelligence from the person who's like, well, you know what? Maybe it's my fault. Let's go through that checklist. I think one question that could help Evelyn now, if she hasn't fired this rock star or figured out the problem, is help me understand. I go back to Chris Voss, right? Help me understand what's going on. And so just lay out the beginning of the story. And then here's the important part. So, hey, you started in January, everything I felt like everything was going great. I thought that you were doing great here. I feel like you're a good fit. You get it. You're great. You understand the system. And then I feel like along the way, at some point in September, things started to go a little bit differently. Help me understand what happened there. And then the magic part is shut up and let that person understand or explain.
I love it. Another thing. So with that therapist that I was just describing, right? So from full-time to part-time to 1 day a week, my business partner and my business coach, Sturdy McKee, we talked about it. Once the therapist emails me to go from part-time to 1 day a week, I don't even answer the email. I'm like, I gotta call my help hotline, my business coach, right? So we get on the phone. And the one thing he said, he goes, so have you been doing your weekly check-in calls with the therapist? And I was like, no, because I was already, this is on me. This is me being open, guys and gals. I was already so irritated months ago when they went from full-time to part-time. And then it was like the therapist, full-time for us is like 20, 25 patient visits a week because we do 1 hour visits, right? So then therapist was like, no, I'm full. I can't accept any more new evals. And I was like, you're at like 14 or 15 patient visits a week. Like that, you're full, but that's not full-time as per the number in the offer letter. Anyway, so Sturdy McKee flips the mirror back on me. He says, have you been doing the weekly calls, the phone calls, Zoom calls, whatever, the weekly calls and check-ins with your therapist, especially for us, because we're mobile, like in an outpatient office, there's like, you're kind of in the common space and you bump elbows, like you're close enough. You see them treat, they see you treat, you're in and out of like the lunchroom, whatever, staff room, whatever, before and after shifts or whatever. Like you get to kind of touch base easier. But for me, I need to even schedule and carve out the time to do these phone calls and Zoom calls. And I said to Sturdy, no, I haven't been doing. And so Sturdy was like, he's like, obviously he's like a therapist. He's like, he's a physical therapist, but he's kind of like a mental health therapist in a way. He's like, so if you were doing the weekly calls with him, do you think you would have been able to identify this like a month or two ago? And I was like, yes, most likely. Right. So when Evelyn has a front desk rockstar, things might be so busy. I'm making some assumptions. There's probably so many tasks and the practice is busy and volume and a bunch of things, and everyone has lives and things going on, that maybe there was no check-in calls, no, or not even calls, in-person meetings in the office, because I think she has an outpatient office. So the front desk person, there was probably no like weekly or monthly sit down, either in the practice before or after patients, or outside the practice at like Panera or whatever. Hey, let's go grab a coffee. Let's go for a walk, whatever. How's it going? What do you love about this? How can we get better? What do you dislike about your role or here? How can we improve? What are some things we can work on? Let me get some feedback. And I'm also saying this for me, like, then you get the team member talking, and you might have been able to prevent this.
Yeah, that's the magic, right? Like I told you that one question that Jamie Schreier told me that one time, that he asks people, you can ask whenever, but he asks it up before he hires someone. If you were to take the job here, Dave, and 5 years from now you were to leave, what do you think that reason would be? That's me giving you a chance to tell you what the thing you're scared of or the thing that you want most. Aren't we supposed to pay attention to those edges? Instead of saying, what are your values? What's your biggest weakness, Dave? I swear, if anybody asks me what my biggest weakness is, I will fold my resume back into my bag, get up and leave. I don't want to work for you because you're unimaginative and you don't understand the assignment of a manager, right? Your job is actually to manage employees. This is why, and I feel like Tony would be nodding along and saying, this is why he says, and he does for the most part, the owner should not be treating, not full-time anyway. Tony will jump in when he's short staffed or needed, and he'll just run in and be the extra guy. I like that. But he says, like, your job is to manage people. That's a job. That's an entire job, right? You don't just hire someone and go, okay, good luck. I showed you where the bathroom was and how to log into the email. My role here is, I'm very sorry, but these are humans. They are messy. So I hope Evelyn gets to keep this rock star personally, because I root for people. What do you think?
Absolutely. And the question with Jamie, I love that question, because you're finding out with the candidate that's in front of you, who you're even just considering hiring, you're finding out what's important to them.
Yeah.
Or you're finding out what's the thing that's really going to tick them off. Yeah. Like that. You the question of, hey, 5 years from now, let's say you're here for 5 years and then you're leaving, what would be the reason? I heard him say this probably on one of my times of interviewing Jamie on my show. He had a therapist that answered like, oh, well, I might be leaving the area like in the next 2 or 3 years because my husband is in some of the military armed force, something where they get moved around to different stations and they can't even really control it. So he knew that. And then he said to me like, hey, she was a great team member. She was a great therapist. She was with us for 2 or 3 years. And then her husband got relocated and obviously they left. And that's why she left. Now, he could kind of plan for that. Now, of course, there's other things in the mix, like that type of team member could have left early. There could have been challenges, whatever. But at least the owner knew that was one reason, a non-emotional reason why they might leave the practice. And you can kind of plan around that.
Like take it to another extreme, right? Like where Jamie's question is so great, where if it's like, hey, I think I would leave if there was no, because this is a single individual practice. If there was no way for me to, grow or be promoted, and Jamie could say, actually, it's not on the website or anything, but like our goal is to actually expand to another location or 3 in the next 5 years. That's an option. I'm not promising anything, but I'm saying that option is there. Really want to advance clinically. Oh, we provide this many number of dollars in, if you want to get your OCS or if that's important to you. It's just it's called a framing question. I call it a ricochet question. Cause like when you see it out of the corner of your eye, that's where the magic is. So instead of coming right at something like, what values do you have? So I think we can still draw back to Evelyn in the situation, which is what's important to you? Like, what do you like about this? Like what puts you in flow? right? Is it answering the phones? What is it? Okay, well, what frustrates you? What puts you in mud? What slows you down? Oh, it's actually it might be a new coworker you brought on that you don't know when you're not around. Sucks. And Evelyn's Rockstar just hates coming to work now. Like, you don't know. And here's the thing: fire your Rockstar. Issue still might be there the next week, and then you're just punting. You're dealing with it 6 months from now, and that's not a good business decision, in my opinion. So a lot of those people in the comments, I was very intrigued when like more than 60-70% were like, fire her, get rid of her. Her problems are not your problems. Actually, all of the problems are actually your problems. Now, I'm not saying you have to solve her personal problems, but you're dealing with those things.
Yeah, I think the last thing I could say about it is, like, for me, especially if I'm in this situation, I would want to be verbalizing and communicating how well I think this team member is doing. So I want to say, Jimmy, like, you're a rock star. I mean, we hired you, we interviewed you, you went through everything with flying colors, like all the questions, all the situations, the scenarios we talked about. You did some shadowing, you saw the flow of things in here, whatever. And the first month or two, hey, Jimmy, you are doing great. You're doing XYZ. You're getting everything accomplished. Patients love you. The team loves you. Everything is going smoothly. You're a rock star. Everything's great. Maybe I'm like, if this were to happen to me, it's like there was probably some gap in communication. Maybe we didn't talk as much for the next 2 or 3 months or something. Right. These are just some tips like that I need to follow and practice owners need to follow. Speak with your team members. Carve out 15 minutes. I mean, take the therapist and the team member for a walk. If you don't want to do it in the clinic because then the phone rings, someone runs up.
I think you shouldn't. I think you shouldn't do it in the office. I think, in fact, changing the environment might seem tiny and small, but it's not, right? I mean, I've left roles because I felt disconnected and lost. Like, I do not like feeling disconnected and lost. I do not like feeling like, why I'm behind. Where I am right now, they will not miss a meeting. If, like, because I got to drive to PPS tomorrow and I have a regular one-on-one with someone, she was like, we're moving that meeting up then because we're not going to let Seb. I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I don't love meetings. Like, I love meetings as much as the next person, but I don't want to go 14 days without connecting with this person because I know my personality. If I think that person isn't 100% happy with me, I don't feel well, right? So I have to lean in. I got to go, I need to know where am I falling short because I want to fix that. If that person's a rock star, the person's probably a little bit like this. Right. All right, you want to shift? We just did 27 minutes on Evelyn.
Yeah,
I want to follow up though. I would love to know what happens because I feel like this is like where the first like season or two of Bar Rescue, they just did all the bar rescues, and then season 3 they got to go back to see what happened to that bar. Like, I want to know what happened to this bar. All right, so I believe it was this post. Yeah, there it is. All right, so this is the one you commented on. So I'll let you read this one. This is from Stephanie.
All right, so any OTs in here that provide private pay OT services in homes? I have other therapy friends, SLP and PT, who've gone through this route and really luck out financially. Interesting in learning more of others' experiences doing this. Personally, I'm tired of seeing how much my sessions in the homes are reimbursed for, and my employee mainly profits from it, not me. I've been disappointed watching employers offering insulting salaries, knowing how much we could or should, in capital letters, be making if I spun off on my own. Sigh. Looking to consider picking up a few private pay patients or clients for extra income on the side.
There is a lot to unpack here, in my opinion, right? So where do you want to start? Because this was your moment here.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, if you want to jump in entrepreneurship,
do it.
Go ahead, do it. And I'm really like, I know there's some practice owners out there that are like, probably challenging to work with, and other practice owners that pay competitively. I want to pay competitively for our style of therapy here in New York City because we kind of can, or we also kind of have to like keep therapists and all that. The thing that irks me is like almost like asking. Well, one thing that kind of irks me a little bit, like almost like asking for permission to do entrepreneurship. Like, that's not how it works. Like, it's just, you want to go start a business doing anything, go out and get after it, go do it. Right. That's one thing. The thing that like also irritates me more is when anyone, it could be in healthcare, outside of healthcare, but in this case, you're a therapist, and saying like, I'm irritated, or I can't believe like my employer profits off of what I do, whatever. Yeah, that's business. And guess what? Here's an example. In I don't know, I think it was like 2016, 2017, something. I was working for a mobile practice like mine. That's kind of how I learned the whole model. I was working for them. Eventually, I mean, I started at $100 a visit. Eventually, I was making $134 a visit because they're out of pocket and out of network, kind of like my model now. And their rates were $310 for the evaluation and $280 for the follow-up visits. So I was basically making around 50% for the follow-up visits, treating all of it. And I was the one going out and treating in rain, in snow, cold, 20, 30 degree weather, or 100 degree, 90 degree weather, whatever. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I actually had the same feeling as this therapist. And I said, man, I was like, this guy, this practice owner, he doesn't even live in the area anymore. And he's making 50% off me. And guess what I did? I went and started my own practice, concierge pain relief, hired a therapist over time, made my own, found my own biller, found my own credit card processor, did all the steps, website, Google reviews, Google ads, did the whole thing, did everything, right? And that's what you have to do. I didn't go on any Facebook group or LinkedIn or whatever and say like, I don't think this practice owner should be, profiting off my back and off my labor. That's business. So I don't understand why people post this in Facebook groups when you could just go out and do the thing.
Yeah. Grass is always greener, right? How hard could it be? A person sees an eval come up on their schedule and what they might see is, well, now it's time for me to do work, do the thing that I agreed to do the thing that I was hired for, do the thing I went to school for. And they're seeing, hey, someone makes $150. This is $300. I'm making $150. And they're saying, well, where's the other half going? You don't see it, right? You don't see how that person got on your schedule. All the dollars spent that did not get any patients, the dollars risked. So nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? So at any point, Amen. You can jump off the security. I just did last Thursday when you guys were doing this live stream, I was actually talking to Mike Houston's class at Nazareth College.
I saw a little bit of that.
He brings in like non-traditional and traditional business models. And I'm sort of there. I don't even know what the hell I'm there. I'm there because I knew Mike before PT school. But I put it in the context of, did you ever hear my hips and shoulders? I've done hips and shoulders, right? So
remind us. I think so.
Hip is a ball and socket joint. So is a shoulder.
Yeah.
So but hip is deep ball and socket, right? The only person I know to ever dislocate their hip is Bo Jackson.
A lot of force.
So hip is very stable. A little mobility. That's like your traditional employment. That's what this person is saying. They're like, I have a stable job, right? A little bit of mobility, but someone is profiting off of me. By the way, you're both profiting, right? Because if you were sitting home without anything, you would be making no money. That's how the world works.
Thank you for that. Yep.
But this sounds like this person is like on the edge of a diving board, maybe becoming an entrepreneur, or maybe just becoming someone who whines on Facebook. I don't know what this person's future might hold. But what it sounds like is they don't understand what the alternative is, which is a shoulder, also a ball and socket joint. Not as deep as the hip, though. Lots and lots. I think shoulder is the most mobile joint in the body. I think it's the most degrees of freedom. So it's a terribly mobile joint, some stability, but yeah, dislocating your shoulder is a little more common than dislocating your hip. You have to understand what your risk tolerance is. What are you comfortable with? And I told students, is there a space in between? Can you have a 9 to 5 hip job, stability, right? And consistency, and do something on the side, therapy related or not? Do you want to be a barista on the way? I don't know, but yes, you can do both. So there is hip, shoulder, or a little bit of this, a little bit of both. It just sounds like there's a little bit of sour grapes here. Like,
yep.
My other therapy friends who've gone this route and really luck out financially.
Oh, that is the major area of irritation for me.
Yeah.
Okay,
I make lots of
Jimmy.
money because I work a
You
lot.
know what? I'm really. What was the words that the individual used here?
Really
Luck
luck
out.
out.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. You know what? I am. That's like me saying, colleagues like Jimmy McKay have just, lucked out with building a podcast and going from zero when no one knew what a podcast was to now PT Pinecast over 5 million listens and downloads. Like, so Jimmy McKay,
Lucked out.
guys, he just lucked out. Are
Lucked
you
out.
kidding me? That is why this type of individual might keep a full-time job, maybe do some cash patients on the evenings and weekends. This type of individual will never be an entrepreneur. They will never replace their income with their own hustle and drive, in my opinion. I hope they do. I hope they prove me wrong. But I'm saying this type of person who comes on
Thank you.
Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn or whatever, but mostly these Facebook groups around physical therapy and the healthcare world or whatever, asking for permission. And then like my friends have lucked out financially. Like
Yeah.
I have friends in Boston, Florida, Philly, Jersey, New York, all over different metros that have gone 100% cash practices. And then I have other friends and colleagues that I've known that also tried to do the same thing and it failed and they had to go back and get a job. And the ones that won, it was not luck.
Yeah. No such thing. Like something might happen that is like serendipitous, but like I don't prescribe to luck. Like someone has not explained it to me, so I don't believe that it exists. Right? It's like leprechauns and the Bigfoot. Like, oh, this person's lucked out financially. Lots of people will say. Actually, I read a stat yesterday that more than 70% of people who have started tech companies, this was specifically tech companies, did so in their 40s. And if you ask most of those people, and when they're interviewed, those people are interviewed a lot, they say all the time, oh, it was because I failed in my 20s and 30s. So we learned stuff. But what you see is the luck that they hit because they timed the market right and invented an app at the right time. What you didn't see was all the failures and the fact that they predicted, or at least said, I think this app will serve a great purpose a year from now because yada, yada, yada. So I believe, was it that post or a different post that had people talking about how much someone makes, how much a general manager makes at Buc-ee's? Was that a different one? Yeah, that was the dock worker strike. So that the dock worker strike has been averted for now, I believe, until January, right? Which is a big deal. Like I was actually already starting to order like food and Christmas presents because I was like, are we getting nothing?
The dock workers and the Buc-ee's thing, I think, are related. We can kind of
So
tie
the
those
dock
together.
workers. So this isn't an alternative healthcare career for rehab professional group. The dock workers who went on strike will now make $63 an hour over the next 6 years with full benefits. Many jobs requiring only a high school degree and now pay more than healthcare professionals who require degrees. Well, the license protects the public is what Tony and I would, right? We would all say, right? Of course. I wish we could all unite and demand more. It's getting ridiculous. Meanwhile, no one is getting raises and your pay might even be cut. Even when will we finally say enough? And someone commented below that post later on about how much people are making at Buc-ee's, right? And there's like it's a smart move by Buc-ee's. Buc-ee's, of course, a big like a Sheetz or a Wawa, like a chain of like gas stations, but these are
they're like on steroids compared to Wawa and Sheetz.
these are
Like they have like fudge and ribs and like t-shirts and hoodies and like physical good. Like it's huge.
Right. So Buc-ee's is smart because they post this like a menu in their establishments because they know they have foot traffic, and this is a menu of how much people make.
Also at every gas pump, they post it
Oh,
everywhere.
do they? That's smart. So you get, look at that top right corner, paid weekly. That's like need money now. But a general manager at Buc-ee's is making $1.50 to $2.25 a year. 401k, 100% match to 6%. That's not common anymore. It used to be really common. It's not common anymore. 3 weeks PTO, healthcare, and part-time available. Like you want to be a food service manager, $1.25 to $1.75. So I see where my colleagues are like, I did the thing. I got the good grades in high school. I listened to the guidance counselor. I went to college. I got up for my Monday morning 8:30s. I went to graduate school. I got my degree. And why is a dock worker making $63 an hour and I'm making whatever I'm making? Couple things. You get paid based on what the market decides you're worth. I'm very sorry, but that's not the way it works. I know this is where I think the US education system does fail some people, because after 6th grade, there's 7th grade. And after 7th grade, there's 8th grade. And you're rewarded for doing well and doing the right thing. Then you go out into the real world and there's no more rails. It's not a train anymore. You are off the rails. You are now paid based on not what your degree is, I'm very sorry, but the service that you can provide, what someone else is willing to pay for that. And if you want your Toyotas to come in and your cameras and everything else that's imported, it comes through a dock, and the dock people decide what dock workers make, and they're making $63 an hour. And unfortunately, it sounds like this person's in an insurance model. They're getting paid. The insurance company has decided what you're worth, right? Other people have decided that I'm going to be cash pay or I'm going to be direct to consumer. And then the market decides. Now that might crash and burn, as we talked about a minute ago. There's no rails. But I think it's funny that they now start being pissed about dock workers and Buc-ee's. And Dave, we're also not talking about like, hey, would you want to be on a dock at 5:30 in February in the Northeast?
No healthcare. Thank you. I'm sorry to bark like a dog right now, but no healthcare worker would want to do that. Healthcare workers we know love working 410s, or they love working 9 to 5 or whatever, with the warm, free cup of coffee and a place to put your food to keep it cold in the refrigerator, and some easy, sometimes in outpatient, some downtime when there's no patients or whatever. It depends on your practice or whatever. But yes, no, like 4 a.m., 10 degrees outside, depending on where you're located, like dirt and whatever, like getting dirty.
Maybe dying, maybe like getting injured seriously. Like that is a risk. I mean, I won't say who it was, but I mean, my dad retired. My dad was a New York City firefighter, retired, and he retired to the South, and he was sitting around playing golf with a bunch of guys that he knew from his retirement community. And he said there was one guy who was always sort of looking at him like, oh, McKay's lucked out financially because he's got a pension. And this guy was, I believe, an auto worker for 25 years. That's what he did. And his pension was less or whatever. So I remember my dad's like kind of the opposite of me, like barely talks, right? Until you push him far enough. And he turned to this guy and he was like, hey man, like I sense some animosity essentially. But he said, when I was crawling down hallways in the Bronx in a building that was on fire, I didn't see you next to me, in front of me, or behind me. So you did what you did. I did what I did, and we knew it going in. I got a buddy who's a gym teacher. And even amongst teachers, the teachers look at gym teachers like, gym teachers just play dodgeball all day. And my buddy has the best response. Yo, man, sophomore year of college, everybody knew what the choice. You've been in high school. You know what the choice is like. He goes, now I'm a gym teacher, and I make the same as you. Or actually, I think he might make more than some of the teachers. And I'm a swim coach. I hang out in bathing suits and joggers all day. He's like, but I knew the assignment, right? So if you aren't paying attention to the end of the road, that's your fault.
And speaking about the assignment, can you just show the Buc-ee's thing again, screen share? Because the one thing that, and let me see if it's on this one. Okay, full-time, 35 to 50 hours. Now, that's a big range.
Yep.
Now, the big dollar amounts that we're talking about, the 125 or the even, 125K, 100K, 100K to be assistant general manager. Jimmy, what side of that range do you think that person would have to work in order to most likely get that 100K?
Yeah, if you're putting a sign together, you're going to be touching 50 every week.
Exactly. Okay, so I commented, one of our colleagues, again, this happens all the time, colleagues are posting that exact, basically like screenshot from Buc-ee's. People are, taking pictures or whatever, and they're putting it on Facebook, and it's usually therapists or whatever. So I commented last week on a therapist, and it's funny because you did say grass is always greener. That was my first line. I wrote grass is always greener. Buc-ee's assistant managers are working 50 hours as shown on the display, and probably more than 50 for the same fixed salary. Likely early mornings, overnights in capital letters, weekends, and late nights, covering for junior employees when they're out. Weekends.
Holidays.
Buc-ee's is open 24/7. And they have to do other things like manage/clean dozens of restroom stalls, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Great opportunity? ? And then I did just a simple little Google. I did a simple little Google query. Guess what? On you know Glassdoor, right? The
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
platform
Yep. Yeah, yeah.
for
Reviews.
employees, for employee reviews or previous employee reviews of that company.
Right.
I was actually shocked. Guess the rating of on Glassdoor for Bucky's.
I mean, if you're bringing it up, it's going to be not good.
2.8 out of 5.
Yeah.
2.8. Now
Anything less than 4 is bad.
I didn't even care to I can't even recall. I didn't look into too many of the actual reviews. And listen, we know on Glassdoor, it's kind of like a signal. It's like you're going to get some frustrated, irritated team members and the ones that might not be the ideal fit. And usually it's going to be folks that already left. I get it. And some might review it and they still work there or they're on the way of finding somewhere else to work. I get it. But Glassdoor is a huge platform and it's reviews for it's company reviews so that when you're looking around for a job, you can find a signal.
Yeah, it's Yelp for companies. Like, what is your review of this company? Because other prospective employees and employees take those ratings very seriously. I've worked for 2 or 3 places where we've had major quarterly projects. Can we reach out to people who've had a bad experience and change it? Well, not employees really, unless you're going to hire them again. Or how do we get more good? How do we get our current people who are happy to review it? That is a thing that big companies do. They put a lot of time and effort. I was dumbfounded because I worked for I worked for small companies, right? Where it was just like, and before Glassdoor, but it's a major thing. So for below a 3, companies usually aren't happy unless it's above a 4.5.
And that's the thing. So therapists see this screenshot of Bucky's. They're just seeing the high end of the salaries. They're not talking about the high end of the hours,
Right.
which is 50. It's saying 50, which means it could be more, right? Because when you're a full-time employee, let's be honest, you hang around. If you come in a little bit early, you hang around a little later, something happens, whatever. Now it's like you got to figure this thing out. A customer comes in and is irate or whatever. Someone breaks something happens. And then, before you know it, that week you're there more than 50 hours. You're there 55 hours or whatever. That's unpaid. Then the therapists push back and say, oh, what about our free documentation time? We document at home and weekends or whatever. That's the model that you picked. Like you didn't document during the visit. Like that's a whole, like we've talked about this with Tony before.
Right. We need to have that's a different discussion that Tony needs to be here for, which is the same crowd who bitches about documenting at home is also the same crowd as like, but I don't do point of service documentation. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. And then they'll say they don't get paid for it. I'm like, you get paid to do the entire job. Like if you're salaried, we don't pay you less if you do a little less. Like it's binary. You have to meet the threshold at least enough before we just go, this person is not completing the job as it was described. So this person is not meeting the role. So it is funny what people will complain about over and over again.
This is public. There's a practice. This is public. I can say this. Prokinetics Physical Therapy. I've had Ben Boggy, the practice owner, Dr. Ben Boggy, on my show a couple times. They're offering a salary range of $100K to $125K, and it says new grads welcome. Now, that's in Oakland, California, San Diego, and then also Des Moines, Iowa. The practice owners and none of his therapists are in any of these groups, or there's nothing for them to come on negatively and post in these Facebook groups and say this, that, whatever. And like, that is the crux of all this online stuff. Like there's, I don't know, like, I feel like online, maybe at the end of the day, like, I feel like net, I feel like there's some positive, but like of all the negative that you see and hear, there's all the positive that doesn't even come on the platform. They don't even comment. They don't post anything.
They're out there doing the thing. It's almost funny. It's like we should also, Sturdy McKee might be a good person to ask, which is what should be included in a job description? I mean, a couple months ago, it was like, if you're not including the salary, a lot of people are like, I don't apply, or I'm not showing up to the interview, right? There was a great quote. God, I don't want to screw it up. But it was like, a person got a message back from the recruiter, and it was an email. Like HR was sending a message back to the person applying, and it said, and you said, quote, I can't believe I took a day off to come to this job interview. It wasn't worth my time. And they were like, oh no. He said, I was here. It wasn't worth the time or the money. And the person wrote back, "What money? Like you didn't disclose that until I got there. And as soon as I said that, I was like, I'm out. This does not meet my minimum threshold." So I know that logically you want to get as many people applying for a job as possible, but maybe that's akin to using a really good-looking guy's picture in my Tinder profile. I'm going to get a lot more swipe rights. But then when we get to the date, the girl's going to look at me and go, "Oh, that's not, what are we doing here?" But I got more because more's better. How about better's better, right? So, which is like, I did a thing for the radio station. We were always looking for part-time DJs, right? Because those people will hopefully grow into full-time DJs down the line. And I used to put out, I thought was the best job description ever, where instead of Bucky's leading with the salary, right, which is still a good idea for them, I did the flip. I was like, here's the job description for a part-time weekend DJ at the radio station I ran, which was worst hours ever, nights, weekends, and holidays. You got to be called into work last minute. You will get this minimum wage. It wasn't minimum wage, but it was close to it, like crappy salary. You'll be last in line for free concert tickets. You'll be made fun of and mocked by your coworkers, because that's what you do at a radio station, right? You have fun. And I got less applications than I would have if I just painted the rosiest picture. Good, less work for me. I was honest at the get-go. It's like me using my actual picture on Tinder, not on Tinder. That's what I'm saying. But what I'm getting at is, like, we love to paint the rosy picture. So it would be a good episode to do, like, what should be on a job description so you actually get the best candidates going past that first threshold, not the most number of candidates. I know logically it's like, get the most, because if you can pull from 100, it's better than pulling from 20. Is it? Feels like there's more work that you're doing there.
I love that approach, because now, ever since the past couple of challenges with therapists that I had hired, like, I say up front, like, hey, sometimes it's challenging to book our 30, 40, 50-year-old busy clientele that are lawyers, physicians, investors, financiers, bankers, accountants, whatever. Like, we need to book them around their work schedule. Sometimes they're in the office, sometimes they're working from home from Zoom calls. It will be challenging to book these folks. Also, they're very demanding. They expect results on the first or second visit. They expect prompt communication. They expect you to come into their apartment looking professional, not disheveled. They have a high level of expectations. That is what it is. Now, of course, then the other half of our clientele are the geriatric folks, and they have a little more of a, buffer in terms of what they accept and what they expect, but many of them are sometimes similar.
Yeah.
And you're right. Now I say that, or it's in our materials when someone's applying for us, and we absolutely cover that in some of the, like, the first or second phone call, because I want my therapist to know this is not regular home health. This is no offense to home health, but, like, this is not like Medicare
different.
Part A volume based. This is not even, no, we don't take Medicare. No, we're not exactly like Fox Rehab. There are here's the differences.
Look at, I like to look at other businesses that do something similar. Let's look at the American military. You got the 4 branches, right? You've got Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. I stole a book out of the Marines playbook when I was working for Fox. And we changed a couple words. Did you know the Marines don't accept applications? The Army will accept an application. The Navy, the Air Force, you can apply. Do you know what the Marines accept?
You show up?
Commitments.
Ooh.
Do you think they get less people showing up? Do you think those people that show up are better candidates proportionally? Yes.
It's filtering. Yeah.
Look at their line, right? Like, Army of One, that was the Army for a while. Aim High was the Air Force, right? I don't remember what the Navy was, like, see the world. I don't know. From the back of a ship. I don't know.
And from the commercial, you know what the Marines is, right?
What is it?
The few,
the proud, the Marines. If you want to come here, instead of saying we're different, this was something I noticed the other day. They compared American advertising to Japanese, and they said Japanese never advertise quality. And the idea was those are table stakes. Like, we don't even bother talking about quality, right? But Americans like quality, 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 made in America, right? We love to tout that. They're like, table stakes. The Marines essentially say the few, the proud, the Marines, right? This is Fight Clubbing, right? I don't even know if half the audience even knows Fight Club. Watch the movie. When when they go to apply to be in Fight Club, they tell you for 3 straight days. I don't have to say spoiler alert, like it's 30 years old. They tell you for 3 straight days, you're not enough. You're not tall enough. You're not strong enough. You're too old. You're not old enough. Anything to get you to leave. I don't want the bottom 90%. So I'm willing to pay for it, but I'm going to demand it, and I'm going to filter out those people by saying I don't want somebody who's going to be in their aspect, because a lot of times the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, they're all in a strip mall. They're sharing an office. It's just four soldiers on recruiting duty. They're just sitting there in desks. What is the differentiator? Well, we got boats, we got planes, we got boots, and the Marines are sitting there. They're going, we want the few, the proud. That's who we are. If you're not good enough, don't apply. You know what? Don't apply. But the ones they get through, I'm going to guess. I would love to see some data. Maybe I'll go on AI and look for data. I would say that they bat higher, fewer washouts. I'm going to go look. I need to challenge that. But how do you relate this back to healthcare? Maybe you don't hide the salary. Why are you wasting an hour of your time for getting to the end of a 3-step interview process with someone who is never going to take the 80K? They're like, no, I'm not taking that. Wasted their time. So,
and really quick, Tony Meritato is watching remotely. He did say Tony Shea of Zappos. So do you know this? But like Tony Shea, I think he's since passed, unfortunately. But when he was at Zappos, he would come to employees like Dave and Tony and Jimmy, and he would say, hey, Tony, he would offer Tony a severance package. It was like a year's salary or some percentage of a year's salary. It was like, hey, do you really love it here? Like, do you want to be here for the next project, the next thing that we're shooting for, whatever? Because if you're even like a little wishy-washy, we want to offer you this check to leave. Like, how crazy is that? We're going to offer you whatever, 70,000, 100,000, whatever, for you to leave. And that significantly filters in the team members that want to stay. And obviously compensation, we all need money to live. And I understand that we have bills to pay. But if an employer, now this is a little bit of a tech company, e-commerce, I think they're required by Amazon. So they're huge, and not everyone can do this. I get it. But the approach, I'm going to offer you this free money, this check. If you take it, that means you're leaving. Like, have a nice life and we wish you the best.
But
if you say no to it, we're filtering in.
Who's left on the boat?
The right team members to attack the goals and the challenges and the projects of the company.
Yeah, it was like that movie 300, right? The whole 300. They went out to march. They were not required. He could not order them to come. They all volunteered to come, and he's like, "I can promise you this: death." And he had 299 with him, right? But they were the right 299. We'll have Tony back on Thursday. Oh no, sorry, we'll be live at PPS on Thursday.
Yeah, should I just take off? Or I mean, you guys are probably going to be busy.
Tony and I have to talk about technology. Like, are we live streaming? Are we just doing phones? Are we doing the full, college game day setup? We got to figure that out. So Tony, give me a call. Let's do parting shots. What would your parting shot from today's topics be?
Parting shot, saying this for myself as well as the practice owners out there. As much as possible, try to over communicate with your team members.
Yeah,
we gave tactical examples, one-on-one chats. In my case, sometimes more phone call and Zoom call, but even me with being mobile, I need to get in front of my therapist. I take them out for lunches and dinners and coffees and drinks and whatever. Sometimes I'll treat them, they treat me. We kind of talk about like treatment approaches. If it's like a new diagnosis, a new patient presentation that's not improving right away, whatever it is, outpatient clinics across the country, like we said, take your team member, walk around the block. It takes 5 or 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, go to the nearest coffee place, the nearest whatever place, grab a coffee, take your team member. You talk about current events or the weather or whatever for 2 seconds. You kind of break the ice. Then you kind of get into, hey, how's it going? Deeper. How do you like it here? You get deeper. You kind of dig in. Over communicate with your team members. Only good things can happen from there.
Yeah. Greatest problem in communication is when we think it has occurred. Right. That'll be my parting shot. I'll have 2. And the other one would be help me understand. Like, that is the greatest icebreaker. It doesn't come off, in my opinion, too proby, but it gets the other person to, now I'm in the role of having of getting to explain. Hopefully they look at it that way. I would love to know the follow-up of Evelyn and her Rockstar employee. I want to know what happens here. Because again, this person might be not right. This person might have a thing outside of work that's not your responsibility, but that person in work is your responsibility. That's actually the job.
I should have mentioned this earlier. Another thing Sturdy McKee says is on the front end of a new employee, right? So like when you're interviewing a new employee, they're on their best behavior.
Right.
They will never be better than that.
Right.
And I've heard that when he said they will never be better than how they are on the interview process on the front end. And when they start with you, I was like, wow.
That's the first day of school, man. That's the first day of school. They're never going to be better than that, right? So yeah, you want the person, right? This is like dating. This is like first date. How about 3 years in? That's what they say before you get. Did you go on vacation with your now wife before you got married? I'm assuming you probably did, right?
We definitely did. Yeah.
Yeah. They say like take someone on vacation before you marry them because like stress, canceled flight, rain, unpredictable, like put that person in stress. That's why at Bar Rescue, they do that stress test. We know something's wrong or I wouldn't be here. Where is the work? Where's the most wrong? I want to solve from big to small. So show me where the leak is, right? How do you do that in a hiring situation? That's a little more difficult. I hate companies that are like, I'm going to give you a 7-day project in your application. I don't work for free. I'm very sorry. I'll talk to you, but I've done those before, and those companies wound up not hiring me or offering me too low of a salary, and then they took my work and used it.
But you have built enough, I think, recognition, brand, following, all that, where you can say no. Others can't, and they have to go do that free project to be hired. So and that's business.
It is totally, yeah. Now I just say go to YouTube. Someone asked me like, well, to get the feel for you, which episode should I listen to? I'm like, I have 1,500. Pick any.
I know you would say that.
Pick any. I don't, and I say listen for 90 seconds. If it's not the best 90 seconds you've heard, don't call me. I don't expect you to call me back. Ask 10 people who are in our profession if they listen to podcasts. If I don't come up 6 times or more, don't call me back. I don't expect you to. But here's the thing, right? What Dave talks about, which is what that OT was talking about when her friends or her colleagues are benefiting financially. I did the work first for almost a decade, right? Well, for me, it's coming up on 20 years, but 9 specifically in healthcare. It's easy, right? Just look at the surface. All right. Thursday, we're going to be live from PPS. Tony and I, maybe in a hotel lobby, maybe, not live from National Harbor. If you're going, I want to hear from you. Let's rub some elbows. Dave, appreciate the stream today.
Thank you, guys.